will receive further instructions. If you discover a fire, please raise the alarm using a manual call point. This will immediately activate the emergency evacuation sequence. All alarms will be responded to by the QNCC team. If you require first aid assistance, please approach a member of the QNCC team. QNCC is a non-smoking venue, and smoking is not permitted at any time in any part of the venue. Should you wish to smoke, please use the designated smoking areas which are located outside the building. Thank you for watching. On behalf of all of us at Qatar National Convention Center, we hope you enjoy a safe and memorable visit.
Would you kindly take your seats? The opening ceremony of the Qatar Leadership Conference will begin shortly. Please remain silent. We are about to commence. Good afternoon, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Georgetown University School of Foreign Service in Qatar, Northwestern University in Qatar, and the Simon Foundation, I would like to welcome you all to the 3rd Annual Qatar Leadership Conference. My name is Temitope Akinade, and I am a senior at the American School of Doha. It is my honor to hold the position of being one of the Leadership Conference's Deputy Secretary Generals this year. The Qatar Leadership Conference is one of the largest conferences of its kind in this region. It aims to empower and endow its participants with some of the essential skills for becoming future leaders. We provide an environment where both students and professionals can hone their skills and learn more about what it truly means to lead, inspire, and motivate those around us. Before we proceed with the events of the opening ceremony, we would like to acknowledge and pay tribute to a fellow student and MUN enthusiast. This past Eid holiday, a tragic car accident claimed the life of a student at Mesaid International School. Nikhar Rupal was a member of his school's MUN club, and as such, a member of our extended Model United Nations family here in Qatar. Nikhar would have been at the QLC today. We feel it is fitting to honor him at this time. Please join me by standing and recognizing our fellow Nikhar Rupal with a moment of silence. Thank you. You may now be seated. To welcome Arsalan Mohammed, a student at Qatar Academy and the Secretary General of this Leadership Conference, to give his opening address.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to the 3rd Annual Qatar Leadership Conference. I want to express my humble gratitude not only to the participants for showing a willingness and desire by signing themselves up for a new experience and challenge, but also to the presenters for giving their time to help the greater youth community, to help enhance their overall skills that may help them within or outside their academic lives. In addition to the aforementioned, we would like to thank Simon Qatar, Northwestern University, as well as Georgetown University for their unparalleled support in making this conference a reality. I would also like to take this time to thank my executive team, namely Tamim Al-Mu'tasim and Mahal Qatar Academy, Temitope Akinade from the American School of Doha, Mohammed Fanza Feroz and Nikita Coutinho from the Doha College, as well as the head of admin, Brooke Sampson, the head of press, Aya Nassif, and the head of IT, Akil John. Last but not least, I would like to thank Ms. Martin, Mr. Atkins, and Mr. Abhe for their consistent help, guidance, and support, for without them, the running of this conference would not have been possible. Now, before I wrote this speech, someone had asked me, Arsalan, why is the Qatar Leadership Conference so important to you? After much thought, I believe that I finally have an answer. This conference creates a unique space for dialogue and discussion on topics outside the confinements of school, whilst creating a distinctive learning experience where participants can build skills that will help develop themselves as a whole, while also fostering unparalleled student leadership. Combined, students can move forward and incorporate everything they have learned and apply them accordingly in real-life situations, simply because that is when it matters most. You will have the opportunity to choose from over 100 workshops over the next 3 days, whilst also having the ability to choose to attend ones that interest you the most, to ensure that you can truly get the most out of your QLC experience. With a direct connection to a network of some of the best leaders, debaters, professors, and filmmakers in the region, we hope to give every participant the unique opportunity to learn from an elite group of workshop leaders. Don't be shy. If you have questions, concerns, or thoughts, feel free to ask the presenters because they are here to help you develop the skills you need to be a leader. Now, one of the underlying themes of our conference related to war and conflict. Today, we are facing multiple, highly complex crises. From the onslaught on Gaza to the continuation of the Syrian civil war, we have seen the term humanity come into question time and time again. We have witnessed leaders and unsuccessful resolutions come and go faster than the blink of an eye. Yet here we are today, continuing to hear more stories of grief and sadness on the news. Sometimes I simply cannot fathom figures like 9 million people have been displaced by the Syrian conflict, or that the siege on Gaza took a toll of over 2,000 lives. But this is the harsh reality. Now, I'm not implying that such conflicts can be solved tomorrow. Rather, such solutions will take time, patience, and perseverance. Our generation will be key to resolving these predicaments. It cannot just be one person or a group of people who should make an attempt to solve the ever-present challenges we are facing today. In fact, it will take more than the 500 participants sitting in this auditorium to solve these dilemmas. However, with what you will learn from this conference, I say that we can take the initial step. We can start it. We can lead it. We can overcome the challenges that many have declared unsolvable together. I would like to express my sincere trust and hope in each and every one of you. It is our integral mission as executives to see all participants come out of the QLC with the skills needed to be the leaders of tomorrow. We hope that the distinguished workshops and talented student leaders that you will meet along the way will help in kickstarting an everlasting love for leadership, and that this will take you to new places in your lifelong journey. I would like to end by simply saying this: do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. And so I say, lead on, for you have more to offer the world than you believe. Just take that first step. Through this conference, through what you will learn, keep an open mind, and finally grasp and fulfill the potential that you have had all along. Thank you.
Thank you, Arsalan, for your inspiring words. We will now have Mr. Andrew Mills, a professor in the journalism program at Northwestern Qatar, as our guest speaker. Mr. Mills has worked as a journalist on 5 different continents, covering a wide variety of stories on topics ranging from armed conflict to elections to the lives of refugees. He is an accomplished journalist who has written for publications like the Toronto Star, USA Today, and the National Post. He has also written and produced documentaries for BBC. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guest, Mr. Andrew Mills.
Thank you, Tammy, for such a warm welcome. Salam alaikum to everyone here. Part of the reason I'm here is to offer my welcome to you on behalf of my fellow faculty, staff, and students at Northwestern University in Qatar and our colleagues and friends across Education City. For those of you from out of town, welcome to Qatar. For everyone here, welcome to the edge of our Education City campus. And welcome to the Qatar Leadership Conference. It's thrilling to see so very many of you here today. Leadership. What's leadership? Well, if you had known me when I was your age, 17 years or so ago, I would have probably told you that leadership is about power and authority. It's held by CEOs, political leaders, celebrities, and the like. People who wear pinstripe suits. Well, it turns out that I was wrong. Some people with power and authority are great leaders, but it's not the power and authority they hold that makes them great. I'm going to spend just a few minutes this afternoon speaking with you about what I've learned over the years about what leadership is. When I was 17, I was a middle-class kid growing up in the suburbs of Toronto, Canada. And I was invited to participate in a special leadership training experience run by the YMCA of the Rocky Mountains in Western Canada. This was not a leadership conference. This was to be a 60-day canoe trip down the Great Mackenzie River, the longest river in Canada. The Mackenzie runs deep into the most remote corners of Canada's vast Northwestern Territory, well north of the Arctic Circle. So I was going to have to paddle some 1,600 kilometers. That's like canoeing from Doha to Karachi, or canoeing from Doha to Beirut if a river ran through the desert. We were to sleep in tents and carry enough food for 2 months. Sure, there were a few remote settlements along the way, but for most of the trip, we would be several days' journey from these villages, with nothing but bears and wolves and several million mosquitoes to keep us company. The prospect of going on this trip was terrifying to 17-year-old me. This was way, way outside of my comfort zone. It was scary. I remember standing in my parents' basement, packing up my Arctic weight sleeping bag and heavy-duty mosquito repellent, and thinking, this is absolutely nuts. Fear. The Oxford English Dictionary defines fear as the emotion of pain or uneasiness caused by the sense of impending danger. We've all experienced fear. Some of you, I'm willing to guess, might have experienced fear in preparing to come to this conference. You might have been afraid of traveling to a new country a long, long way from home, for some of you. You might have feared having to meet all sorts of new people. And also, like me, you might have been afraid of having to get up and speak in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. But you know what? You're here. You got on that plane. You've probably already met a few people. And sometime between now and the end of this conference, you're going to walk up to a microphone like this one and speak to a room full of people. I'd like to quote the American poet John Berryman, who wrote the line, "We must travel in the direction of our fear." Listen to that line again. We must travel in the direction of our fear. That's what I did back in the summer of 1997. I paddled in the direction of my fear, all the way down that river to where it flows into the Arctic Ocean. I survived the bears and the mosquitoes and the bleeding, blistered hands that come with so much canoe paddling. In fact, what I achieved that summer turned out to be one of the most influential experiences of my life. not because I've become a professional canoeist or that I've spent much more time in the Canadian Arctic, far from it, but because the most important experiences that have driven my career started with that same uneasy feeling, that uncomfortable fear. Traveling in the direction of your fear is uncomfortable. It's never the easy road to take. It takes great courage sometimes, but it's almost always the right way to go. As a university student, I experienced that feeling when I abandoned my original plan, which was to study medicine. Instead, halfway through my freshman year, I went home to my parents to tell them that I've decided to follow a completely different path. I wanted to read the great works of Western literature and study the history and politics of the Middle East. That was to face down my father, who's a doctor, and tell him that was very fearful. I was fearful of that experience. I eventually became a reporter, a political reporter, for the biggest newspaper in Canada. As part of my work, I followed the Canadian Prime Minister around the country. I got to meet the Queen. I was in a position where I could pick up the phone and speak to ministers or ambassadors just like that. It was a job that hundreds of journalists wanted, but it wasn't the job for me. So I had that same feeling of fear when I quit that job, packed up my life, and moved to the other side of the world, to Beirut, where I pursued the work I really wanted to do as a Middle East correspondent. So now, I teach my journalism students to travel in the direction of their fear. I expect them to go out into the community and do real journalism. Sometimes, that means they have to meet powerful government officials here in Qatar and ask them tough questions that challenge their authority. That can be scary. Other times, I expect my students to meet vulnerable people, like Syrian refugees trying to reestablish their lives in a new country. That can be scary too. Good journalism is always. So I teach my students to constantly ask this question of themselves: am I outside of my comfort zone? If the answer is no, they're probably not doing real journalism. So this brings me back to my original topic and the topic of this weekend's conference: leadership. What does this fear have to do with leadership? Well, one of the reasons I think that we're not all leaders is that we're afraid. Sometimes we're afraid of trying new things. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid that taking a chance might upset people or make others angry. Fear can prevent us from doing a lot of these things. Fear can prevent us from leading. So the most inspiring leaders that I've encountered aren't those with power and authority and pinstripe suits, as 17-year-old me used to think. The most inspiring leaders are those who are willing to travel in that direction of their fear. They're willing to fight when others back down. They're willing to take chances. They embrace that feeling of discomfort because it's a sign that they're on the right track. Welcome again to Qatar. Have a wonderful conference, and remember, we must always travel in the direction of our fear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mills, for your valued words. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the head of Thyman Qatar, Mrs. Lisa Martin, for a few remarks and some announcements for the afternoon sessions and the evening banquet.
Thank you very much, Tope. Before I begin with some announcements and opening remarks, I would like to pay a few thank yous. First of all, to all of you for making your way here to Doha for the 3rd annual QLC. Whether you are students, international or regional presenters, We are very excited to welcome you here to Doha for this conference. I would also like to extend a very special thank you to two people, to Mr. Jesse Atkins, the Thyman Qatar Regional Conference Coordinator, and to Mr. Abhay, our Tech Coordinator. And I don't think either one of them are here. They're probably running around right now. They've spent many long hours and have kept exceptionally good spirits, and by working together, they are the ones that have made this conference possible, so I'd like to thank them. There are a few updates related to the overall conference schedule that I'd like to draw your attention to. There have been a few changes. Cheryl Franco, who was to run several sessions on film and film advocacy, has had to unfortunately cancel due to illness. 2 new sessions by Seema Faruqi and David Taylor have been added to those spaces tomorrow. So when you arrive for the opening, the plenary session tomorrow, you'll be given a handout that will give you details of those sessions and the locations. Regarding room capacity, each room at the conference has a maximum number of participant spaces. The admin staff will direct you to other open sessions if the room becomes full. Please cooperate with the admin staff in helping us keep the number of participants to their appropriate levels. For those of you familiar with the QNCC, who have been here for our Thyman Qatar conference, you're aware that we traditionally use the exhibition hall on the ground floor and the main theater. These are areas not being used for this QLC, so please don't mingle in those areas or hang out in those areas. There are other events taking place here this weekend, and again, the admin staff will direct you to where you need to go. A last reminder also about dinner. Is that it will be held here in the Convention Center. All events here are held at the QNCC, not at Northwestern University. There is an error in the schedule. Dinner is held in it's called the Conference Hall, and it's on level 2. So it's just right on the other side of the escalator. And admin staff, again, will be present to direct you. Last but not least, we also want to tell you that if you follow our press site, which is thymanqatarpress.com, there will be stories updated throughout the course of the conference, and you can also follow us on Twitter by using hashtag QLC14. As a way of both to introduce myself and to share with you what I think the QLC is all about, I'd like to tell you a QLC story. 2 years ago, at the very first Qatar Leadership Conference, my predecessor and the founding head of Thyman Qatar, Cameron Jansen, invited and showcased a new form of Model United Nations that he had recently discovered, a kind of MUN that had never been done before. Online Model United Nations and its founder were given the opportunity to share the program that weekend. As important as the workshops, there was also the opportunity for multiple networking opportunities. And the QLC provides all of us that opportunity to network and get to know one another this weekend. And that was especially true for me. Before the conference had even started, over the breakfast buffet at the Movenpick, where many of you are this weekend, I met David Taylor, one of the world's foremost proponents for MUN curriculum integration. Shortly thereafter, I met Darby Sinclair and Kristen Rowe from Taipei American School, and 2 women who would play a very important role in the development of OMUN, along with many of their wonderful students, some of whom are here presenting at this QLC. A little bit later, over coffee, I met for the first time Ryan Villanueva, a best delegate, launching a working relationship and a friendship that would take us on MUN adventures in Jordan and Palestine, and in the more recent collaborative efforts to develop the first MUN professional development opportunity specifically for teachers, the Directors Training Institute, which will have its inaugural launch tomorrow across the street at Qatar Academy. In the lobby, on the way to the bus, I met KFC, Kevin Felix Chan, also a best delegate, who quickly became my mentor as we worked to develop the Olive Branch magazine. At the QLC, once we were there, I met an astounding array of students. Mariam Alamari from Saudi Arabia and Oman's outgoing Secretary General, Marie Tushi and Laura Ryan from the American School of Doha, and also Osama Ghani, who was a new student at Qatar Academy that year and is this year's Secretary General for Thyman Qatar. In those 2.5 short days, relationships and partnerships were built that were forged that continue to this very day and into this very room. And it's very safe to say that I would not be standing here today had it not been for that first QLC. So when I say that this is a special event, I really speak from deep conviction and a real sense of gratitude. There is a reason why we do not have a dedicated teachers' lounge, a place for teachers to go off and grade papers and extended essays while their students go off and have a conference experience. This is because the QLC is an opportunity for everyone in this room to spend time collaborating together and learning from one another. So whether you are a new delegate, new to MUN, much like my own daughter, who's out there, I hope, someplace, or an official from the United Nations, first for the QLC, for which we are very honored, and everyone in between, teachers, new directors, student officers, humanitarians, film enthusiasts, budding entrepreneurs. The QLC is a place to come and learn new skills, to network, to plan, to be inspired, to dream, but also to act. That is what leaders do, and that is what the QLC is all about. I hope that your experience at the 3rd Annual Qatar Leadership Conference is as special and productive to you as the first QLC was to me. And on behalf of the Thyman Qatar office, we welcome you to Doha and wish for all of you a fantastic and productive conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin. This now brings us to the end of our opening ceremony. I wish you all an enlightening and beneficial conference. Moreover, I hope that you take full advantage of the opportunities presented to you over the next 3 days. I would now like to introduce my fellow DSG, Nikita Coutinho, to declare the official opening of our conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. It gives me great pride and honor on behalf of the student leadership team to declare this 3rd Annual Qatar Leadership Conference officially open. Our first session will begin in 10 minutes. Please make your way out to there. Please be prompt and leave through the 2 exits at the back of the door. Thank you. Well,
I can do anything with you. I can tell anything to you. I can be anyone with you. You and the moon, we're going home soon. Counting myself with this smile, feeling so free like a child. I can go anywhere with you. I can do anything with you. I can tell anything to you. I can be anyone with you.